All right, this is the copyright disclaimer. The copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Fair use, fair use, fair use.
In 1887, the U.S. government passed the Dawes Act, calling it a civilizing mission. They promised Native families farmland, citizenship, and a pathway into American society. But behind that promise was the most devastating land grab in Native history. The act split tribal land into individual plots, forcing Native people to abandon their traditions, their communal way of life, and their sovereignty. And anything the government labeled surplus was simply sold to white settlers. Overnight, 90 million acres of native land disappeared. Families were pushed into unfamiliar farming. Kids were taken to boarding schools to kill the Indian, save the man. And nations that had stood strong for thousands of years were left fractured. What they called assimilation was really erasure, a slow-motion robbery carried out on paper. The Dawes Act wasn't just a policy. It was the blueprint for breaking Native identity, culture, and land. And its damage still echoes today, written across reservations, lost languages, and generations still fighting to reclaim what was stolen.
If you want to understand why so much indigenous land was lost after the treaty era, you have to understand the Dawes Act of 1887. After reservations were created, the U.S. government introduced a policy that changed everything. Instead of tribal nations holding land together, the Dawes Act forced land to be divided into individual allotments, usually 80 to 160 acres per person. Anything not assigned to an individual was labeled surplus land. And that so-called surplus, even though it came directly from reservations, was open to settlers, ranchers, railroads, and corporations. This single law caused the loss of 90 million acres of indigenous land. The goal was clear: to break up tribal nations by ending communal landholding and forcing Western-style individual ownership, a system that did not match indigenous governance, culture, or values. The Dawes Act also created fractionation, where one allotment split into dozens or even hundreds of shared heirs across generations. This made the land nearly impossible to use, develop, or reclaim. Many families lost their allotments because taxes were introduced, paperwork was complex, or land was sold without full consent. By the early 1900s, reservation maps looked nothing like the original treaty lands. Huge portions were gone, not by war, but by policy. If you want to understand why the land back movement exists today, it starts here, with the Dawes Act. Follow for more real stories from the Dakota homelands.
What do you call it when they stop stealing whole nations at once and start cutting the land up piece by piece? Welcome back to the Architects of Reclassification. Exhibit 4 is Senator Henry L. Dawes, and the charge is this. He helped turn tribal land into... In 1887, the Dawes Act became law. Its whole setup was to divide tribal land into individual allotments instead of keeping it held collectively by the tribe. Federal policy had shifted from removal and war to land fragmentation and forced assimilation. Catch the play, jury. Once land was broken into little pieces, the government could declare the rest surplus and open it up to non-native settlement. So this was not just paperwork. This was a land transfer machine. And it hit hard. Historians and federal records both point to allotment as a major driver of native land loss, with native land holdings dropping dramatically between 1887 and... So Dawes matters because Jackson helped clear people off the land, but Dawes helped slice up what was left. This is where the attack gets more surgical. Not just removal, disassembly. And once you break up tribal land, you weaken tribal power. tribal continuity, and the paper trail tied to collective identity. That is why allotment belongs in the reclassification story. It helped turn nations into scattered parcels and survivors into administrated individuals. So jury, here's the question. Was Henry Dawes helping people own land or helping the government dismantle a people through land policy? Drop your verdict in the comments. Hit that plus
If your family disappeared from tribal records after 1900, pay attention. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we've shown you the doctrine, we've shown you the method, we've shown you the first reclassification. Now we show you the consequences. Once indigenous children were renamed, baptized, and relabeled in school records, those new identities followed them into the US Census, into land rolls, into federal registries. And when the Dawes Act of 1887 broke up tribal lands into individual allotments, eligibility depended on one thing: recognition as Indian on paper. If you were listed as colored or Negro instead, no allotment, no land, no treaty protections, no inheritance claim. That land didn't vanish. It was declared surplus and open to settlers. So understand this clearly. Boarding schools didn't just erase culture, they cleared the legal pathway for land redistribution. First, remove the child. Second, remove the identity. Third, remove the land. That is the pipeline. This is where the schoolhouse connects directly to the paper genocide protocol. Exhibit C4 rests. Hit that plus button so you can follow the case.
The $5 Indian scandal exposed how some white Americans falsely claimed Native American identity to steal land, money, and rights that were supposed to go to real Native families. During the early 1900s, the U.S. government gave land allotments and oil rights to members of tribes like the Cherokee Nation and the Choctaw Nation. But corrupt officials, lawyers, and wealthy white settlers paid people around $5 to lie and say they had Native ancestry so they could be added to tribal rolls. At the same time, many Black Americans and Black Native people were being denied land, rights, and recognition. Some actual Native descendants were pushed aside while fake claims opened doors for outsiders to profit from oil-rich land and government benefits. It became one of the biggest identity fraud scandals connected to Native land theft in U.S. history. The story shows how greed and racism worked together during that era, using loopholes, fake records, and corruption to keep wealth and land out of the hands of Black and Native communities. A lot of people still don't know how deep these schemes really went.
Shalom. We are the Hebrew Israelites from the Indianapolis branch of the Great Millstone. We're here to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well in teaching us this 100% truth. Salutations to them and our fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth that be like a to the speckled bird, also known as your Israelite foreigners and your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, we say Shalom.
Shalom.
All right, today is another installment of our camp series called For Thy Violence Against Thy Brother Jacob, where we go into the brutal and treacherous history that Esau Edom, the so-called white man who is the wicked, according to Malachi 1 and 4, has inflicted upon the children of Israel since the beginning of time, since he really, going all the way back to when we were exiting Egypt. They came up from behind, going into the promised land, they came up from behind and attacked us, all right? And it's been nonstop ever since, okay? Especially since they've been in power since the Renaissance period, all right? On the screen today, you see today's subject. We're going to be going into the Dawes Act, of which started in 1887, about how they did the Northern Kingdom, and getting the details about that. All right, we'll touch on the paper genocide as well as the whole thing with the $5 Indians. That's where this that was a result of this act. All right, see the article on the screen. That will be part of the video. We'll put it in the description box so you can read it at your own leisure. All right, so without further ado, we'll get into the opening scripture.
Got it. This is Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 10. It says, "For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever."
Kind of. This is talking about, once again, Esau, Edom. Okay, the so-called white man who is the wicked. All right, and you can say so-called because he is actually red. All right, no one is white, and that word white, when you go into the etymology of it, it means without moral impurity, and we know beyond a shadow of a doubt he is not pure whatsoever. The base man, according to Job 30 and 8, just wicked. He does not fear the Most High. All right, and the scriptures say, Psalms 53, that there's not one good, not one of them. Okay. And it's talking about Esau, Edom, and going into this history of what the devil has done to us. Massacres, stealing of land, changing of identities. That's what happens here in this story. They changed it. They reclassified the Israelites so that they could take land. All right. So and it says because of his treacherous acts against us, his shame is going to cover him. And that's what's happening right now. Esau, Edom is being exposed by, GMS 365, 24/7, 365, around the clock. All right. And then on top of that, what you have, which is a phenomenon within itself, his own women, is starting to out on his behavior and his history. Okay. And then because of that, like I said, he shall be cut off forever. Yes, you are going to extinct, according to the scriptures. You will be going extinct after you serve twice as slavery, twice as long and twice as hard as we did. And it is going to be brutal. Okay? Brutal. It won't have the weird stuff like you did, the butt breaking, it's going to be done in righteousness, but it is going to be brutal. All right? So just get ready.
This is John 10 and 10. It says, "The thief cometh not but for to steal, and to kill, and to destroy." So like the brothers 1 and 2, that's all this devil has done ever since he chased us out. All he ever done was steal, kill, and destroy from our people. Destroyed our people as a heritage, destroyed our people as really we are royalty, man. We are royal priesthood unto Yahweh Shema Shai, as the scripture says. He took all of that away from us. He took all of that by taking our heritage. He took that self-awareness away from us, as a people. And we've been raised up to believe that we came from monkeys. That craziness went. We've been raised up to think we were just wild animals running around, man. And that has been the perception of the rest of the world. Of what this devil has perceived to us, to everybody. So that's all he does is to come and steal, kill, and destroy. Everything he touched crumbles. Everything he touched turns into destruction, man. Even when he go up against the rest of the nations and go into their lands, he doesn't do nothing but destroy it, man. He's the author of it.
No, I was just going to say, we talk about this often. In these videos, he does a lot of projection.
Yeah.
Okay, and science has found that they're closer to monkeys and stuff than it's not even us. It's them. They're the ones who have tails. A lot of them when they're born. So, but enough on that. Anything else before we get started? Okay. Let's go ahead and get into the article. Like I said, you see it on the screen. A link to this article will be in the description box of the video. So we'll go ahead and get started. It says, what was the Dawes Act? It says the Dawes Act, sometimes called Dawes Sovereignty Act or General Allotment Act, passed in 1887 under President Grover Cleveland, allowed the federal government to break up tribal lands federal government aimed to assimilate Native American into mainstream U.S. society by encouraging them towards farming and agriculture, which meant dividing the tribal lands into individual plots. Only the Native Americans who accepted the division of the tribal lands were allowed to become U.S. citizens. This ended in the government stripping over 90 million acres of tribal land from the Native Americans, then selling that land to non-Native U.S. citizens. And we say every time, Jake is looking for reparations from the government, and right here in this first paragraph, it is evident you cannot ask the people for reparations who put you in position to need it anyway. There's a reason why they did that, to serve them on purpose. Okay? Yeah, precept?
Yeah. It's book of Micah, chapter 2, and verse 1. It says, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hands. In verse 2, it says that they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. All right, so you know that verse 1, all right, it went into how it says, woe to them that devise iniquity. All right, because you know, Esau, that's pretty much all they're known for, man. All right, when you're devising something, you're coming up with a plan. All right, and their plans are concerning wickedness, man. All right, and iniquity. All right, and it said they work evil upon their beds, man, because they, like the scripture we just read in John chapter 10 and verse 10. All right, anything that Esau puts his hand to do is something wicked and evil, man. All right, and it may not seem that way up front, but Esau, Edom, they always have an ulterior motive, especially when it comes to dealing with the Israelites, man.
Precept.
All right, it says when the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hands. So we understand that Esau, Edom, all right, he's currently in power, man. All right, according to Job 9 and 24, the earth was given unto him. All right, so what he's choosing to do with his power is to be wicked, all right, and to destroy the nation of Israel, man. Ultimately, because he wants that birthright back. All right. In verse 2, it says, and they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. And you know that's pretty much what we're going into. All right. They covet fields and take them by violence, man. Esau was given, all right. Pretty much the power over the world, and that's not enough for him, man. All right, Esau has to take everything, man. All right, and you know when it goes into violence, that's not always something that's done physically, man. All right, he can commit violence by any means, man. All right,
yeah. Even like recently when they went after that pipeline a few years ago. They just told those people, you gotta go. We want to do. He said, "What is this? We can't build a pipeline here. This is our sacred land." And Esau wasn't trying to hear that, man. You know, and it's the same thing they do now. They take 90 million acres is a lot of land.
Yeah,
that's a lot of land. And like Brother Barnes was going into throughout the article, in those times, Esau was going and claiming that they were Native Americans. They were going under that, claiming they were Native Americans under that lineage to get that land, to covet that land, so that Jake and and niggas Latinos, Native Americans couldn't get it.
right.
So they were identified as so-called Indians to keep the land within their people.
Because like you said, I'll just expound on what you said. He said even a man and his house and his heritage. Okay, we know that can be a physical house as well, but you're also known by the house of your fathers, which is your heritage. And then going to what you just said, that's exactly what they did. Oppressed the man in his house. Okay, you took away his name, taking away Indian and reclassifying it with a Negro or color, so they could use that to call that land a surplus and sell it off to these people who claim to be the people they just reclassified.
Right.
So, yeah, this is the devil, man.
I got a precept.
I was going to say he do a diligent search.
Yeah.
It's like
Like you said. This is the book of Psalms 37 and 12. Let's just go back to what the brother's bringing, what he just brought out. It says, the wicked plotteth against the just, and gnash upon him with his teeth. And so, of course, it was a whole, like a land grab. They seen the land in which the natives had. They came over here into the Americas, and then they just started setting laws and just telling their people they can come and that this is free land. When the natives occupied it, they had propaganda, as far as like calling them savages and saying that they, uncivilized people, which gave them justification to go in and to treat our people the way that they did treat them. We'll see also, how they then tried to go into learn, like, went into sending them into boarding schools and different things like that. And you'll find, we'll touch on it it's in the reading, but you'll find that when they started to give some of the land back, that over a process of time, these children that was receiving this land didn't know how to till the land and the farming, so you educated them in your system to then put them back out there to not be able to use the education than what you were giving them, and the land was like horrible land. So they once owned all these acres to now narrowing it down to small pieces of real estate, to then not even, and then real estate is not even something they could even work on. So you plotted against them and you set these agreements with them, broke the treaties, and at the same time they ended up getting the bad end of the stick.
And also, not just from the people, but from the animals. Because you had a lot of bison. You had, and even to keep that land going, those animals have to drag through that land. It's a lot that deals with it. You know what I'm saying? When the Lord set this thing up, we talk about this all the time at camp, man. When the Lord created this, man, He created a circle of life.
Yep.
So certain animals going through certain lands help till certain lands. Some help fertilize certain grass. The Lord made this thing for a reason.
It's all part
it's all a part of that
ecosystem.
A circle of life, as they call it. So
and to your point, and that's the thing, they then started to put them in a pretty much like box them in, because of course they used to follow the buffalo and the different animals, and they would just and there were seasons in different areas, so they would leave this area, go to this area. So it was like America being vast, you then pretty much have pretty much put them into prison.
And they probably followed the land law too. That's in the Bible. They would, like you said, they would travel with the buffalo, so they'd probably be somewhere for a few years, leave their land, go over somewhere else, and, because that's a lot of land. Like I said, we can travel 50 acres and we don't have to till this land for 6 years. We can do it over here. When we come back, they did a number on them, man. And, y'all got it.
If I may make this point real quick, you brought out that Micah 2, 1 and 2, oppress a man, even a man in his house and his heritage. What you just said, Ron, you got to remember, it was Jake, who taught Esau how to farm and agriculture. So by them doing that, once they wiped out those generations, they taught them what they wanted to learn, and then it was all messed up because they didn't have their ancestors to teach them that, for the most part. So they gave them the BS land that they thought they could work and they couldn't. So that's all I have.
You got
Precept. This is Psalms 55 and 21. To the back of your point, it says the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords. And that brought this out to back up your point. There they come with decrees, bringing it to the people, making treaties, and ended up breaking them. And the people that they broke the treaties with, end up getting the short end of the stick. And this has been Esau Edom's way of dealing ever since they came into power.
That's why the scripture said what in Sirach, said it not by thee, at least seek to overthrow thee and take thy seat. So what we know in times past in the history, Esau, he's come to the children of Israel, with smooth, lying words, making it seem like it was for their benefit, making it seem like they was gonna get some sort of a good end of the deal. But at the end of the day, it always ends up going south for the children of Israel, man. I had some. Yes, more.
No, that's it.
Kind of, real quick, this is Proverbs chapter 23. I'm going to read verses 10 and 11. It says, remove not the old landmark, and enter not into the fields of the fatherless. For their Redeemer is mighty. He shall plead their cause with thee. You know, and also, you know, the term fatherless, right, that's a term throughout scriptures that have been placed upon the children of Israel. And hey, we can't forget, man, hey, the natives, they are part of the Lord's people, man. All right, they're also the Lord's people. You know, and ultimately, Esau, you are guilty of transgressing the scripture. You know, because what the natives, we know they inhabited this land before you. You know, it talks about that in 2 Ezra the 13th chapter. And you, through your wickedness, through your violence, all right, through your covetousness, all right, you came to this land, you know, committed murder, robbery, theft, rape, amongst many other crimes, just so that you can have possession of this land. You know, verse 11 again, it says, for their Redeemer is mighty. Who's our Redeemer? Yahweh Shai. Okay, that's who our Heavenly Father Yahweh was getting ready to send back to redeem us and deliver us from the hand of our enemies. Okay, and it says what? He shall plead their cause with thee. You know, so the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai is going to fight on our behalf, man, judge on our behalf. All right, that word plead goes towards strive or contend. You see, and once again, the natives being the Lord, part of the Lord's people, you are guilty for committing murder, robbery, theft against them. So, the Lord, He's requiring that of you, man. You know, and we know, when all is said and done, the Lord, He's gonna let Gad get their hands on you. You know, Genesis 49 chapter. Gad, the truth shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last word, for paraphrasing. You know, so of course, you know, according to prophecy, this had to happen to Gad. Okay, but the Lord, all right, in the near future, is getting ready to let Gad get his get back. You know, all the tribes for to get ready to get their get back, man. You know.
Hey, now, Rami, if I may make this point real quick, when you talked about in Second Ezra, talk about Second Ezra 13, that land's called Asherah. Okay, and the Lord came over here too, because we got to remember in Matthew 10, He said, "I have sheep not of this fold." Okay, at the time He said that, those sheep were the 10 tribes that were already over here. Remember, the Lord was in the time of the Roman captivity. We had Judah, Levi, and Benjamin still over there, and the 10 tribes were already here. Okay, so we have to make mind of that. That's what He said in 2 Ezra 13, and there was another peaceable multitude. That was your 10 tribes that were already here. Okay, and I said 10 that were here, and then 3 that were still over there. That's a total of 13. Well, I thought it was only 12. Well, you have to keep in mind the tribe of Levi, their inheritance was a tithe and offering. It wasn't the land. So that's why when you look at a map, an ancient map of the 12 tribes of Israel, you don't see Levi on there. That's because they're in the suburb of each one of those parcels of the land. So just want to make that clear.
Yes, the Lord was our inheritance. The tribe of Levi. I said the Lord, you know, the scriptures talk about the Lord who was a tribe of Levi's inheritance.
Yep.
Just
You run me?
You want me?
This Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 12, it says, "Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood and establisheth a city by iniquity." All right, and this is going into Esau Edom. You know, woe meaning death and destruction, man. You know, because Esau, you know, the way that he was able to gain his power and have this kingdom to be striving was off the blood of our people, man. You know, the northern kingdom, man. You know, also include the southern kingdom too, but it was off the backs of our people. All right, and he you know, invaded our people's lands. Push Jake further. Like, for example, Issachar used to own Texas, man. In parts around it, man. And Esau, when he pushed Issachar back further towards Mexico, man. You know, and Esau, he did that to all the tribes, man. Invade their lands, invade their native lands. You know, oppress them. You know, just like the brother Double One brought out earlier, in Micah, the 2nd chapter.
But Esau, what he covets fields and takes them by violence, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so Esau Edom has a huge tab that he's got to pay. All right, here in these other days, man. All right, and in the kingdom, man, when he's gonna continue to pay.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Just want to back you up real quick. You're exactly right about that, because in one of the videos, Andrew Jackson forecasted a lot of these acts today. Because remember, in 1830, and I think we did this a little while. We did this video a little while ago with the Indian Removal Act. You know, you had the Trail of Tears and all of that stuff. So that was starting. They were starting 50 years earlier to get them out of the lands, man. So yeah, you're exactly right when you bring that up. Mm-hmm. It's a long-range forecasted plan, man. Messing Jake up, you know.
It was like an operation.
Yeah. Pretty much.
This thing of theirs was strategic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even to the bank loans, and even up to this day, man, this devil has strategically planned to keep our people down.
Yep.
You know, through his programs, through welfare, through housing, through education, through it all.
Mm-hmm.
So they're even noticing now that, well, they've noticed that taking the man out of the household was the best thing for them to do, to help our people, because we lost that leadership in our houses.
He brings that up all the time, man. Yeah, you good. Yeah,
that's the spirit.
We lost that leadership in our houses, and without that leadership, you know what I'm saying? These YNs grow up emotional. And what did they do? It started our people committing self-on-self genocide, shooting and killing each other. We've lost ourselves in this devil's world, bro. As a people, you know. I got a precept as well.
Yeah.
But it's cool.
Go ahead.
This is Isaiah chapter 24 and verse 5. The earth is defiled of the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. All right. And this dude, hey, everything, these people, they have changed all the laws, man. All right. They broke every treaty that they signed, they destroyed.
Over 400 of them.
Even unto this day. Even unto this day, the treaties that they sign with different countries, they tend to break them. They never keep their word. All right, but now the Lord is revealing it to the whole world now. You know, just like you were going into earlier. Now the Lord is lifting that skirt up on this devil, man. We're seeing this thing come out. You know, we can't keep up with some of the news. You know, the way the Lord is speeding things up and judging right now, man. You know, this is a scary but great time to be into the truth. You know, okay.
Go ahead and get back into the article. It says, how did the Dawes Act affect Native Americans? It goes on, if they accepted the allotment divisions, the Dawes Act designated 160 acres of farmland or 320 acres of grazing land to the head of each Native American family. These acreages were comparable to those promised by the Homestead Act, but there were important differences between the two acts. Tribes already controlled the land that was being returned to them at a fraction of the acreage. Native Americans were not accustomed to a life of standardized ranching and agriculture, and the lands allotted to them were often unsuitable for farming. So you gave them back bullshit, you know, to put it lightly.
The first time you take somebody's land and then ration it back out to you.
Yeah.
It's our land. You gonna take my land and ration it back out to me, and then you gonna give me the worst agricultural parts of it? You better, man.
It says, in order to receive their allotment, Native Americans were required to enroll with the Office of Indian Affairs, now known as the Bureau of Indian Affairs. By enrolling, the individual registered themselves with the office, and their name went on the Dawes rolls, which assisted government agencies in determining whether or not that individual was eligible to receive their allotment.
Precept.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I quoted it, but this is the book of Sirach, or Ecclesiastes, chapter 12. I'll start at verse 10. It says, never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusted, so is his wickedness. though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed. Yet take good heed and beware of him. And that's how Esau worked. When he comes to you in a lowly spirit, and he comes to you pretending to be humble, but really, within his mind, he has different ulterior motives. And ultimately, that's to overthrow you. Okay? It says, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away, because in the end of all that, right, his wickedness was still shown forth then. Right, his true intentions were still shown forth. Okay, because that's wicked right there. For you to steal land and then come up with an unrighteous decree, and through that unrighteous decree that they registered through, it's not even certain if they're going to receive a certain allotment of that land. Let's say verse 12, set him not by thee, least when he hath overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. Neither let him sit at thy right hand, least he seek to take thy seat. And is that not what happened? All right, our people, our native brothers, right? They had their land stripped from them, and they were pushed into certain areas that weren't suitable for them, man. It says, and thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith. See, so at the end of the day, the enemy, right, is never, doing things that is to, benefit you, man. All right, every time he comes with a righteous decree or a proposition or whatever, right, he tries to come with an agreement or a treaty or whatever, right, ultimately it's to benefit him. He in his mind, you have no part in this. He wants to completely take what you got, man, and use it for his benefit.
Let me link up with him real quick. This is you have more?
No, that was it.
This is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 43 and 44. It says, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. Because again, this was a native land, and when the Europeans, when they came over, they were strangers. They had to be taught how to navigate the land and things like that. And as we're reading, they systematically look to find ways to take over the people. Like an example of a quote, it was stated that Columbus had made a mention, it's like, hey, give him like maybe 40 or 400 men or something like that, and he could pretty much subdue and take over all these people, because these people came off to be peaceable. Well, not came off, we were a peaceable people. And so you start to see, even to this day, we can see the end result of them coming into the land, making these treaties, and systematically taking over the land in this Dawes Act, which was then we take the land and then we're going to lend it back to you. We're going to give you certain parts, right? So we see that happening, which further show that these people are the children of Israel. Yep. They were part of the curses as well. And it says, he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. So how quick that our people, over a process of time, and they just didn't sit down and take it. Our people fought, to try to keep this land, keep the heritage and things. But this was all through the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Here's why. He says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy power, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. It says, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Because, what was the thing? Like, they said it was like Thanksgiving, right? That's why they tell you Thanksgiving. And they realized that all these native people had all this land, and how did they get boxed in down to like reservations, right? They ended up getting bad end of the stick. Another thing that you brought out, Azareth. One thing that it said is that that they didn't even keep the laws when they came here. They did to a point, but they didn't keep the law even when they came here. They started to still go into blood sacrifices and things like that. And Apocalypto is like an example movie of like some of the things that they were doing when they were over here. So the Lord, again, it was all prophecy that they would be over here. Then of course the native or the so-called blacks, you know, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, eventually become over here, because in Jeremiah it tells you that they would be oppressed together.
Yep.
And so, and then and this would be the high concentration place in which the people would be gathered, you know, or salvation, you know, or be here in the Americas. So it's all for prophecy to play out in the end, you know. Yeah, y'all got it.
Yeah, you said that because he said these people are so. These people, pretty much, he said they were so nice they would be easy to conquer.
I got the
You got the quote?
Yeah.
Con.
I'll read it real quick. It says, they brought us parrots and balls of cotton and spears and many other things, which they exchanged for the glass beads and the hawk's bills. They willingly traded everything they owned. They were well built with good bodies and handsome features. They do not bear arms and do not know them. For I showed them a sword. They took it by the edge and cut themselves out of ignorance. They have no iron. Their spears are made of cane. They will make fine servants. With 50 men, we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever we want. You know, that's how they was looking at the Native Americans, man.
Yep.
All right. Hey, they like we was going into earlier, man. They our people, they was living off the land. All right, and they didn't have no need for all this extra shit Esau was talking about, man.
Right.
All right, but he came over here and took advantage of our people, man. All right, took the land. All right, divided up something that don't even belong to them, man. All right, but like the brother Barra was going into, it was all for prophecy's sake, but that still goes to show you that wicked, evil spirit Esau has towards the nation of Israel, man. All right.
So and just to show, like in the curses, you know, different parts in Deuteronomy 28, they happen, you know, to different tribes at different points of time. So, you know, it's not an all black thing, you know, the so-called. You know, it's the whole nation. So when you look at these different tribes, you find that even too from the language that was taken, you see that a lot of them were, you know, taken by the captors. You know, and we ended up speaking their language. We ended up going into their customs, which which made us, you know, heathen in spirit.
Yep.
You know, so I don't go too far in that. We go ahead.
Okay. This book of Psalms, chapter 94, beginning at verse 20. It says, "Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by law?" So what it's saying is, you know, the king of sin, you know, Esau, Edom.
Did I say that right? Heathen in spirit? Is it flesh? I want to make sure we clarify that. Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to, okay. Go on.
It says, Psalms 94 and 20, "Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by law?" You know, like you were saying, you know, this was all about them. You know, they used those treaties, 400 plus treaties, which actually were mischief, because it ultimately benefited them. They broke all of them. You know, they used those treaties to reel Jake in, the Native Americans in, and then turned on them. All right? And then, like I said, you know, you got the king under the throne of iniquity. You know, in other words, the king of sin. All right? So they have fellowship with you. Going back into Sirach chapter 12 that you mentioned. No, you never trust your enemy. All right? It says, they gather themselves together, verse 21, "They gather themselves together against the souls of the righteous and condemn the innocent blood." They did a whole lot of slaughtering to take that land too. It wasn't just an act. You know, like we were talking about in the car on the way here. You know, that Andrew Jackson and that Indian Removal Act was horrible, man. You know, they had Jake, you know, out there dying out there in those harsh winters. You know, so on and so forth. Okay, it says, verse 22, "But Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai is my defense, and my power is the rock of my refuge. And he shall bring upon them their own iniquity, and shall cut them off in their own wickedness. Yea, Yahweh our power shall cut them off." So, like you were saying earlier, you know what I mean? there's a huge tab they gotta pay, man, for what they've done. You know, we're on video 227 right now. That's still just scratching the surface of everything that this devil has done. You know, we haven't, you know, we're just at the tip of the iceberg in terms of all this stuff that he's done. So there's gonna be a huge tab, man.
Yep. Just we're gonna switch it up just a little bit because you post the article in the description, so you can go in if you want to read more on this article. You go in and click on the link, read a little bit more in depth. As far as I know, we touched on a big portion of what was going on, but what I would like for us to do is someone can go ahead and grab the Trail of Tears. Just do like a brief description of the Trail of Tears. The other thing we talked on, the pepper genocide,
$5
and somebody grabbed the $5 Indian. Let's hit on those real quick.
I got the pepper genocide.
Go ahead. Speak up. So,
excuse me. It says here from Google AI. It says paper genocide is a systemic erasure of a group of people from official historical and demographic records, like censuses, to make them disappear on paper. By intentionally altering, destroying, or misclassifying documents, governments or colonial powers can legally extinguish a culture's identity without mass casualties. Since the term is predominantly used in a North American and Caribbean context. It says indigenous erasure. It famously occurred during colonization. For instance, early Puerto Rican censuses went from listing thousands of native people to absolutely zero in just a few years, officially declaring the indigenous population extinct. It says here the Racial Integrity Act and the
precept. This is Jeremiah 17 and 4. He says, "And thou even thyself shall discontinue from thy heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thy enemies in the land which thou knowest not, for ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever." So, of course, the natives, the point I want to get in there is that they even discontinued from what they were, the customs and things they had here in the Americas, you know, by what you were just reading, you know, to the point of them becoming not a people. You know, go ahead.
That, if I may add, you know, he said, "I will discontinue thou, even now in your heritage." You know, that was a prophecy. Because Jeremiah was in the Babylonian captivity. He knew who he was. You know, that was a prophecy that you know, in his next generation, and those that came after wouldn't know who they were.
Right.
He knew exactly who he was.
God. Yeah, so.
Okay. This is Psalm chapter 83. The point is in 4. I'll start at 1. It says, "A song or psalm of Asaph. Keep not thou silence, O Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai." Because what? You know, we waiting for the Lord to redeem us from the hand of our enemies. You know, hey, the Lord, He's seeing everything. You know that the heathen nations are doing unto us, beginning with Esau, even so-called white men. And, hey, we complain to the Lord to ultimately avenge us of our enemies, man. You know, verse 2: "For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up their head." You know, which tumult basically goes like, you know, the war cry. You know, and ultimately all these nations, beginning with the nation of Edom, are against us, man. Verse 3: "They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones." Right, the hidden ones of the Lord being the Israelites, or the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And what they have taken crafty counsel to ultimately what? You know, keep us in a lower state. You know, really, man, the next verse I'm going to go on and speak on it. Verse 4: "They have said, Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation." You see, and ultimately these heathen nations have banded together with one goal in mind, and that's completely cut us off from being a nation, man. Go get us up out of there.
Yeah. Read the last part.
Yep. Kind. The last part, that was the point. It says that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Remembrance. It's like, so, you know, Esau trying to erase, you know, the natives from the history books, you know, classify them as a no people, you know. That's them, you know, making a nation of Israel of no remembrance, man.
Yeah. Go back to reading that, the paper.
kind. It says here the Racial Integrity Act. In the United States, a prominent example happened in Virginia. From 1912 to 1946, a state registrar named Walter Plecker intentionally reclassified Native Americans and multi-racial black individuals as simply colored on birth and marriage certificates.
So that's why I showed that we've mixed in, you know, and they just put that one blanket statement, you know, black, which we understand that that's like to be void of light, and wicked, evil, you know, which that's a projection that Barzal brought out earlier, you know, that they placed upon our people. Do you have more?
To this, yeah, I got some. I was gonna say real quick if I may, because that's why it talks about in Hosea, the first chapter, in the land where it was said unto you, ye are not my people, and there shall be said, you are the sons of the living God. Because here in the land of America, we've been called everything but Israelites. Yep. Going back to the curses, Deuteronomy 28.
37, verse 37.
Yep. We've been called blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, Puerto Ricans, so on and so forth, and even down to the slurs, niggers, Spanish, coons, wetbacks. All right, these heathen nations have called us everything but Israelites. They know we the Israelites, okay, but they not calling us Israelites, man. They calling us everything but that.
Let me get it real quick. This is Deuteronomy, which causes confusion. This is why we call it Babylon, all right? This is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee. Just to make it to your point.
Yep, and here in the land of America, because what? We've been scattered throughout the 4 corners of the planet Earth, you know? But here in America is where the mass bulk of the Israelites have been scattered to. So, hey, everywhere we go, you know, hey, the heathen nations are looking down upon us, you know, mocking us. You know, we become a proverb and a byword. You know, we're in the places we've been scattered to. You know, hey, we're pretty much a laughing stock right now.
Yeah.
What that Job said, they spit in our face.
Yeah. We're the scum of the earth to the rest of everybody else. Even when even like when so-called Africans and other nations come over here to America's, man, they already have a fucked up thought about us.
Yeah.
You know, because it's taught around the world that we are just these savage people who kill each other off, you know, but it's not taught how we got to this place of where we at. We're only, what do they say? The word I'm looking for. We only the splash on the wall, without the whole mosaic. We just they only serve the splash of it. That's all that people see when it comes to our people, man. You know?
Who got the?
I was just saying, just to his point, y'all ever seen? There's a Vietnam video that goes around where you got these brothers talking about when they went over there. It's like, we over there, and the first thing these people do is call us nigga. How they know to do that? How they know to do that? I'm putting the group.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. Who got the Trail of Tears?
I got a brief summary.
Okay.
This is the Trail of Tears in Britannica. It says, the Trail of Tears in U.S. history, the forced relocation during the 1830s of eastern woodland Indians of the southeast region of the United States, including Cherokee, Creek, Chickasaw, Choctaw, and Seminole, among other nations, to Indian Territory west of the Mississippi River. Estimates based on tribal and military records suggest that approximately 100,000 indigenous people were forced from their homes during that period, which is sometimes known as removal era, and that some 15,000 died during the journey west. The Trail of Tears invokes that collective suffering those people experience, although it is most commonly used in reference to the removal experience of the Southeast Indians, generally in the Cherokee Nation specifically. The physical trail consists of several overlands routes and the main water routes, and by the passage of the Omnibus Public Lands Managed Acts in 2009, stretch some over 5,045 miles across the portion of 9 states: Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Illinois, Kentucky, Missouri, North Carolina, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. You want me to keep going?
No, that's good. That's good. I got something. This is back in Deuteronomy. 28 verse 31. I know you're talking Trail of Tears, but it's just something that came to mind. It says, "Thy oxen shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shall not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thy enemies, and thou shall have none to rescue them." Because you can look up pictures of buffalo during the time that we're speaking, and I've seen pictures where they had stacks and stacks of buffalo just like dead on top of like the carcass and like the on top of each other. Yep. Maybe you can find something, a picture or something like that, or an article, like, you know, we can stitch it in as well. So though this also happened, like, again, to all the tribes had some form of this happening. They have their land taken away, the vegetation and all being devoured by the enemy. They're telling their people, you know, the Edomites are telling them to come and take the land and just go and settle in these places. And the places in which they go settle, they're taking the sheep. They're stealing from the people, the natives in the land, and so they're just seeing all their stuff just being gobbled up. Mm-hmm.
Do you want the $5?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
You can speak on it. Go ahead.
Okay. On the $5 Indian, asked a question. This is Google AI again. What is a $5 Indian? It says in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, this was a derogatory term for non-native settlers who bribed corrupt government officials with roughly $5 to add their names to official tribal rolls like the Dawes roll. Okay, the goal was to fraudulently claim land allotments intended exclusively for Native Americans. Today, it is also used as a derogatory jab for people who claim Native American ancestry without proof or tribal recognition. And most notably, recently, we found out one of the senators did that, Elizabeth Warren. She got cold busted for lying, saying she was an Indian. And they went back and did a test on her lineage.
She's a $5 Indian.
She ain't nothing. She's an Edomite.
Well, we're in a time of apostasies and sellouts and agents. And everybody's being exposed, for things like who they really are. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so pretty much, what this was doing, either they were trying to assimilate or integrate us into them. All right. You have some more on that?
No. Like I said, a lot of those lands that they took and destroyed were sacred lands. They had a lot of our history. They're starting to find a lot of caves that Jake noticed with Hebrew writing in it.
You just found that in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, they're starting to find like a lot of our caves now because they destroyed a lot of our history through that siege on our land.
Mm-hmm. That goes in Jeremiah 17:4. All right, it's not only losing a name, but that are part of our history and our culture as well, man.
Yep.
All right, that all plays a part in that.
Okay, that'd be sick.
Yeah, let me. This is Deuteronomy 28, verse 33. It says, "The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always." Did this happen to them?
Yeah.
It says, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. Right. So this one just to see your land violently taken away, your children being taken away and put in these boarding schools, being retaught, and then being pushed into reservations, and then today to hear a people say, telling other people to get out of their land, or this land in which we have built this great land, America, but then seeing the history of that, how you've taken it, like brothers brought out, thief cometh not but to steal, kill, and destroy. You see, it was nothing but great robbery and murder, how this land has been taken. Blood, and blood touched the land. How'd it go? No, numbers.
35 and 33.
Yeah, grab that real quick.
Pursue blood.
Mm-hmm.
Blood shall pursue thee.
So this is why. So what he's about to bring out is one of the reasons why in today's time, all these calamities and things are happening upon the earth, because of the violent dealings and injuries, riches gotten by the sea. This kingdom is being translated from one people into another. You got it.
While somebody's holding that, can somebody grab Joel 3, 19 through 21? Is this how you clear that up?
Yeah. And then we're gonna wrap up.
Yeah, I had a good preset.
Yep. After you, we'll end with you. You got it.
Yep.
Okay.
It's the book of Numbers, chapter 35 and verse 33. It says, "So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood is defileth the land."
So when these people came over here, they started to kill off everything, and it defiled the land.
Yep.
Like Isaiah says that the earth is defiled under the inhabitants thereof. You know, now once they took over and they started going and placing their mark in all these different places, everywhere they went, what followed them, like your brother brought out earlier today, he says, with death and hell followed behind them. You know, it put everybody that came around them or is around them in bad conditions. The people of the natives, soon as they got, you know, you hear stories of once they got with them, they started getting smallpox and getting sick. Yeah. You gave them fire water. We didn't even mention that. You give them fire water, got them drunk, and once you got the men drunk, you slaughtered them, and then took advantage of the women and children. So it was a onslaught. That's why he said, and they would only be crushed always, continuously, even to this day. You know, we know that this land belongs to them, and you barely gave them any type of reparations or any type of relief.
Right.
You know, and they're on the reservoirs, you know, drinking, like it's like as I heard somebody mention, it's like drinking, you know, like alcohol, rubbing alcohol, different stuff, like, you know, the type of stuff that they're actually, the conditions that they're actually in. And then it's been said too, like the women's been snatched up in high levels, you know, and trafficked, you know, as well. You got to finish that off.
Yep. It says, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it.
So your blood has to be shed, you know, like the brothers just said, it says, since thou has not hated blood, blood shall pursue thee. Mm-hmm. So this is why all these things are happening on the earth, in America, well, ultimately the whole earth, because what? The earth has been given into the hand of the wicked. And the wicked has been exposed, and now we understand why we're in the situations that we're in, because it's the rulers of the land. So no matter how you want to splice it and blame the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, it really, when Yahushua returns, he's going to see that his people are found in your hands, not the other way around. And so he's going to deal with you accordingly. And if you be found, a man is stolen, and they're found in your hand, the wages of that sin, you know, is death. Yep. You know, you got.
That Joel.
I got Joel.
Okay.
This is Joel 3 and 19, and it reads, Egypt shall be a desolation, and Edom shall be a desolate wilderness.
That's that Egypt is, you know, the house of bondage, which is America. That's what it means, all right? And Edom shall be a desolation. You know, that's going to not only you as a nation, but all the lands that you have, all right?
For the violence against the children of Judah, because they have shed innocent blood in their land.
See, that's what links up with that Numbers 35 and 33. Okay, for their violence against Judah, which is the southern kingdom at that time. This stuff was horrible. You know, we've been covering this every week. All right.
But Judah shall dwell forever, and Jerusalem from generation to generation.
Judah dwelling forever, Judah from generation to generation. That's that immortality. Okay, that's when we have the law, statutes, commandments on our inward parts, and we have that spiritual power. We will return back to the gods that we were. And you got to ask yourself, since you search the scripture so diligently, what are you going to do against people that can't be killed, that have all power? And they're going to be on your ass like white on rice. You got a major problem coming. I don't think you have thought of that. Okay? It's going to be horrible for you when some of us gonna have that spiritual power on this side, just to give you a taste of what's gonna happen. All right, go ahead.
Verse 21, for I will cleanse their blood that I have not cleansed, for the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahshua dwell in Zion.
God, see, and that again has to be cleansed by the blood of him that shed it. That's the only way that's going to happen. All right, and like the Lord said in Ezekiel 25, by the hand of my people, he's going to destroy you. All right, he's going to exact his vengeance. And remember, like the scriptures say, hey, he works through his prophets, man, and that's some power that. Y'all you have no idea what you've done. Okay, but you're gonna learn real quick. I have this final precept.
Yep.
Okay,
we're gonna close out here.
Yep. Yeah. Again, this article, it goes on. It talks about assimilation, integration. That's not gonna happen. This is Deuteronomy 7:6. It says, "For thou art a holy people unto Yahweh Bashem Yahushai thy power. Yahweh Bashem Yahushai thy power hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all that are upon the face of the earth." Where this integration or assimilation, it doesn't work. You try to integrate with something or assimilate with something, we have to bring ourselves low to do that. That's not what the scripture says here. We're above everything that's on the earth. Okay, the Lord himself said, give that which is give not that which is holy unto the dogs. Okay, because dogs are the heathens. Cast not your pearl before swine, lest they trample over thee. You can't give away your heritage. You can't integrate people into your heritage. It don't work. It's only for us. Like the scriptures say, he chose one people that he gave a law unto. Okay, and that puts us above all. Every nation's supposed to look to us according to Deuteronomy 4. A great nation with law, statute, and kingdom. That's us. That's only us.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, just to back you up, Deuteronomy 28:1, and it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy power, to observe to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, the Lord thy power will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And we know that we broken our end of the covenant. We transgressed, went against the laws and followed the nations, and as a result, we went into 15 through 68 as a nation, different parts of time, different dispensations of time. We were hit with these many things, and then Deuteronomy 28, going back to tribes, they also were sent. The natives were also sent on boats and ships as well. Where it says, "And ye shall," let me just read it real quick. 28 verse 68. He says, "And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. By the way thereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you," which is to redeem you out of these conditions that we were sent forth. Because the Lord said he would scatter us. And so, of course, some of the natives were scattered to, other parts, because, again, they knew this land. So it was better to take them out of this land and send them to a place that they, wouldn't be familiar with. And then you brought the northern kingdom, or southern kingdom over here into the Americas, and then caused the confusion by saying, hey, they're all black.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Now, I was going to say to your point, when you read that Deuteronomy 28:1, and we take in everything that we've been doing in these videos for the last 2.5 years, that covenant was no joke, man. It was no joke. It was serious, especially when you see everything that has happened to us, all the stuff we haven't discovered yet up until this point. Jake better get it together, man. He better get it together. But then again, he has his, those of Israel that are not of Israel and his elect. Okay.
Yeah. So, so we just say, repent ye, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand.
Yeah.
So with that, we hope that this lesson was edifying, uplifting, exhorting to the elect body of true believers. Before we end, we like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the globe. Until next time, all those listening and learning to you, we say Shalom.
Shalom. We got next.